Hey guys, Mishka here, and I'm really excited about this video. This is my 2021 update to how to play Bard. There's been some recent patches lately that buffed up Bard, and we're going to take a look at them and see what they do. So one of the big things I hear about Bard a lot is that people don't understand the class. That's fine, that's completely understandable. I'm going to go through and kind of break it down for you. So first things first, your weapon is a baton or mallets. They look like this. It doesn't matter which hand you equip it in because Bard is a legitimate dual wielding class. You have two of them, right? So yeah, use both of them. The way that Bard works is that you have this marimba here and you have instruments. So over here you can see that I have equipped 6 instruments. You have 8 instruments total. So there's one of my extra ones, and I don't know where the other, there is the other extra one right there. You have 8 instruments total. You can equip 6 at a time, and you can activate 3 at once. When you have them activated, they're always going to activate in the same colored order. The first one is going to be red, then green, then blue. So if I disable these, I can go red, green, blue, right? Whenever you activate them, notes are going to fall down, right? Those notes correspond to each instrument. So for instance, I always put my instruments in the same order: Cure Wounds, Gentle Healing, Protection, Inspiration, Harm, Justice. So I know that this instrument is Cure Wounds. So every red note is going to be a Cure Wounds note, right? So what does that really mean? Well, each instrument has 2 abilities. It has a passive ability and it has an active ability. The passive ability is something that happens just by playing the notes. So as long as I'm playing these notes, a passive ability is happening. And we're going to see it right here in my buff bar, that blue one. That is the Cure Wounds buff. The Orange Fist is Encouraging Note. That's one of my talents. We'll get into that in a minute. But Cure Wounds, right? The passive effect is that all healing that I receive, if I'm being affected by the passive for Cure Wounds, is increased by 5%. So all healing I get is now increased. The active ability are called crescendos. And a crescendo is built up by playing 12 notes of that instrument. And as soon as you build up 12 notes of that instrument, the instrument will start glowing. You can activate the crescendo, which in this case is a bolt of healing. So likewise, if I activate Gentle Healing, now I've got Cure Wounds and Gentle Healing running. So I'm hitting the notes that's my passive abilities, and the passive abilities can be strong, they can be weak. It really depends on this blue bar right here. You're going to notice I'm not hitting any notes, so the blue bar is emptying. As soon as I hit notes, the blue bar starts filling up. The more full that blue bar is, the more effective your passive abilities will be. So if I'm all the way up here, my healing is going to be great. If I stop hitting notes, my healing is going to get worse and worse until the point where I'm not healing at all anymore. So if we get all the way down here, you're going to notice I stop getting buffs. So ready? No more buffs, right? That's my stamina bracer, but my Cure Wounds, my Encouraging Note aren't affecting me because the blue bar is empty. I'm not doing anything. As soon as I hit notes again, boom, blue bar fills up, I start getting more powerful. You want to keep that blue bar filled. So you hit 12 notes, boom, crescendo, healing bolt, healing bolt. We'll go over what each instrument does here. But that's the basic of how Bard works. You have passive effects and you have active effects called crescendos. So what are those effects? Let's take a look at the instruments. Cure Wounds we already went over. The passive is to give a buff to nearby allies, increasing healing received by all sources by 5%. And then the crescendo is a single bolt that will target the nearest ally, or nearest within 25 meters. Passive and crescendo effects have a range of 25 meters. It's going to target the lowest percentage ally, lowest percentage of health ally, the ally with the lowest percentage of health, and hit them with a healing bolt so powerful that it'll take you from unbent to full health immediately. Gentle Healing, this is kind of your bread and butter. Every 3 seconds, it sends out a pulse of healing energy. And again, that range is 25 meters. Now, to give you an idea of where 25 meters is, each of these dummies is 5 meters away from the next. So if I stand here, right, or this dummy is 5, 10, 15, 20. So about 25 would be right about here. So from here, I'm able to affect the dummy all the way on that side over there. So that, and then the equivalent distance that way, that way, that way. That's the range of a bard healing. It's pretty large. It's pretty awesome. The crescendo for gentle healing is sending out 3 bolts to the lowest health allies within range. It heals for a pretty good amount. Instrument of protection, that's a fun one. So we'll go ahead and get rid of these. Oh yeah, to activate an instrument, you tap it. To deactivate it, tap it with both mallets. I say. And then it doesn't work. If that doesn't work, there are a few bugs still in the game. If that doesn't work, or you have weird bugs with the instruments, just swap classes. All right, Instrument of Defense. This is an awesome one. It just recently got buffed. Every 3 seconds, everybody within range, like I said, 25 meters, will be given this shield buff. Now I've got +6 mallets. These are currently almost the best mallets in the game. Still have to get those +7s. But with a +6 mallet, that shield protects for about 7.6k health. That's not a lot if you're doing in-game content. However, it's constant. It's always refreshing. Every 3 seconds, they get that shield again. If you don't have a musketeer, because this will override the musketeer shield orb, if you don't have a musketeer, this is phenomenal. Because that is a lot of damage mitigation. Not all at once, but overall, you're blocking a ton of damage. Especially if you're doing lower level content like, shards 5 or below, 6 or below, 7 or below. This can block a significant amount of damage. I don't use it during boss fights because bosses tend to hit a lot harder. And 7.6k is not going to make much of a difference. But I'll leave that to you. The crescendo for that is everybody within range gets a decurse. So if you have enemies that are doing poisons or shadow marks, that'll decurse everybody within range. Just be aware that the crescendo usually doesn't come up in time to decurse every single one of them. It's usually every other poison or shadow mark. Next one is inspiration. Inspiration, oh my goodness, this is awesome. This boosts your wisdom, which boosts your ultimate charge. So, oh, my bad. If we look here, my wisdom is 0. If I activate it and I hit the notes, boop, wisdom is now 300. What does that mean? It means that my ultimate will charge 20% faster. Now, as a bard, that's pretty cool. Our ultimate is awesome, but I'll get into that later. But where that really comes into play is with rangers. The ranger ultimate will increase their damage by 81%. 81%. That's almost doubling their damage. If you can build up their super 20% faster, that is significant, and they will thank you, and they will deal stupid amounts of damage. That is amazing. If you have a ranger in the party, this is invaluable. The crescendo, what the crescendo does is if somebody has a super active, they're using their ultimate ability and it's running, if you use your crescendo while it's running, it will increase the length of time that it's active, which is pretty cool, again, for rangers. Warriors, not going to see much use. Paladin, no. Mage, no. Shaman, Rupert is awesome, but I don't think it affects Rupert. Scoundrel, you're not going to see any use out of it. You're not going to have another musketeer in the party, so really it's only useful for those rangers. And there's that buff icon right there. Boop, that's the wisdom icon. So coordinate it with your rangers. If they say I'm using my ultimate, give it like a 2 or 3 seconds, and then use that crescendo, and now their ultimate keeps going. This is another bug where you use the crescendo and it keeps showing that there is a crescendo active. To get rid of that, if you have another crescendo active, you can use that and that'll reset it, or like I said, just switch classes, or when you rebuild the crescendo. So that's inspiration. Harm. Harm pulses every 3 seconds, just like gentle healing. The only difference is that it deals damage to enemies. We're not really going to get to see that here because unfortunately dummies don't take passive damage. So, I'm sitting here playing these notes, bangoing my bongo, and if I was in combat, it's not going to initiate combat, But once you're in combat, it deals that damage to, again, everything within a large radius. So if I'm right here, if I could get into combat with all these dummies, I would be hitting every single one of them. It doesn't deal a lot of damage. It's like, I think for me, it's like 16 to 18k every 3 seconds. So it's not significant, but it deals damage to everything, and it's great for building up tiles. The Crescendo will send out a single bolt that will hit, interrupt, and stun an enemy. Pew! So you saw the little stun icon. I was hoping I could hit that one, but something to be aware of is that with Harm and then the next instrument, Justice, the Crescendo will zigzag, so it can be kind of difficult to aim. I'm going to build this up one more time so you can see that. Boop, boop, and there we go. No, that didn't do it. Oh, I thought that would have done it. How many notes? I'm not good at counting to 12, apparently. I'm guessing this is a bug. No? Okay, yep. I think I'm definitely bugged out because I should be using my Crescendo. It should have built up by now. All right, we're going to go with Justice now. So Justice, kind of similar to Harm. Every now and then it sends out a bolt that kind of pulses around. Let's see if we can get one to shoot out here. Maybe if I keep moving. Oh yeah, I think it's looking for an enemy. So you're seeing these little like sprites, this little poop, right, like that. What that does is it'll send out a little bolt that kind of tracks an enemy and hits it. But again, because I'm not in combat, it's not showing any enemies. The Crescendo is awesome. It sends out 5 bolts that all hit, stun, and interrupt an enemy. Like so. And you see the zigzag effect and why that can be hard to aim. Something of note, and the game won't tell you this, using your Justice Crescendo in PvP will give players sickness stacks, which means they will not be able to heal as effectively. So if you're in PvP as a bard, if you can hit somebody with an Instrument of Justice, that was a good hit. Like a Paladin or a Musketeer, usually what'll happen is because it deals so much damage, they're going to try to burst heal right away, and that'll waste their heal because they won't be able to heal as effectively. The last 2 instruments, we have Instrument of Defense. It places a debuff on enemies, and their projectiles will do 10% less damage. I never use this, because you should be dodging bolts. If you take a bolt, you deserve to die. Granted, I mostly play in-game content, so 10% heal protection won't make a difference either way. I'm sure it has its uses in like maybe shards level 7 or 8 and below, but most of the content I play, this won't save us, so I don't use it. The Crescendo will remove 1 beneficial effect from nearby enemies. The only thing I've seen it remove so far is stacks from boss 3 of Guild City Raid, the pot tank. It'll remove the pot stacks. So if you're having trouble with that, that's something you can use. Last but not least is Instrument of Speed. Instrument of Speed, it says it increases the movement speed. That's not true. What it does is it increases the stamina charge. So this little purple bar here, right? If I teleport, you see that it gets lower and it refills. And as it refills, my teleport range increases. What Instrument of Speed does is it just increases the rate at which that increases. And then the Crescendo for it, it will instantly refill the stamina bar. That's really awesome if you have like a fatigue shard, or you have bosses that require a lot of movement. I tend to use this in Citadel boss 1, Guild City boss 2, and that's pretty much it. So that's how to use passive effects. That's how to use active effects or crescendos. That's how to use. That's what all these instruments do. Now let's get into the talents and the builds. I have Potions of Forgetfulness. That's awesome because I'm going to be using those. All right, so let's go into the talents here. The cool thing about Bard is that almost every single talent has its uses. There's only 2 talents that I don't use. So let's go over it. Tier 1, Acoustic Power increases the range of your smart heals, which means crescendos, by 10 meters, versus Reverberate increases the range of your passive beneficial effects by 5 meters. Now the thing about Bard is that our crescendos take time to reach our target, right? If I see the tank is at below half health, if the tank is this dummy over here, and I'm over here and I use a crescendo, it's going to take 1 or 2 seconds for my crescendo to get all the way to the tank, in which case he might have taken another hit. that's bad. So if I'm healing as a bard, if that's my tank over there, I'm going to be sitting somewhere like right here, right? I'm going to be really, really close to the tank. So I do not need acoustic power. If my DPS starts taking damage for some reason, if they really need health, I can scoot back. Like I said, the passive range is 25 meters. So if I'm right here, I'm affecting probably out to like somewhere over here or so. The passive healing will take care of your DPS. If they really need a heal, you can jump back, use your gentle healing crescendo, and then jump back forward again. That'll heal them up. But for the most part, I never use acoustic power. Reverberate increases the range of your passive beneficial effects by 5 meters. Absolutely, I take that on every single bard build that I use. Just because, like I said, the passive beneficial effects, the boost for cure wounds, right? Getting the 5% extra health, that's awesome. And then you're going to see that bards also have a whole bunch of really cool party buffs that we can apply. So the next one, chorus versus encouraging note. This is where you have to decide. There are really 3 kinds of bards in my mind. The 2 big builds and then a hybrid build. You have on this side your healing abilities, right? The left side bard is pretty much I'm buffing all the heals. I'm going to be heal central bard. The right side of the bard, the way I see it is you've kind of got your troubadour and your skald, right? I'm playing music to heal, and I'm playing music to help you kill. So on the healing side, chorus, your instrument to cure wounds increases healing done from all sources by an additional 5%. So now, instead of this cure wounds buff giving us an additional 5% healing, it'll give us 10% healing. And that affects everybody in the party that's within range, right? And if we took reverberate, it's no longer 25 meters, it's 30 meters. So everybody within 30 meters of you is going to be getting 10% extra heals. That's pretty awesome. Especially because, right, if the tank is right here on the boss, we're sitting like right here or so. A ranger who's 30 meters away is going to be within range of us. So everybody in the party should be within range of our healing and our buffs. Solo increases the healing of your healing effects by 20%. Think about that. All of your healing, your gentle healing pulse, right? That pulses every 3 seconds for a moderate amount of health, that's now increased by 20%. Not only that, but all the healing that they're taking is increased by 10%, right? That stacks. That's awesome. You're now dealing a lot more damage, or healing. A lot more healing. So, yeah, if you're going to be a heal bard, absolutely take those 2. Upbeat is amazing. Always, always, always take upbeat. I cannot stress that enough because upbeat increases the note that the rate that these notes come down by 30%. So we go from here, right? Ba, 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 ba. We take upbeat. Let's turn on those 2 instruments. And all of a sudden, they're coming down kind of fast, huh? Right? Now, what does that 30% really mean, right? Well, one, it means that we keep our blue bar full a lot more because there are these breaks in between the patterns, right? That the blue bar kind of empties. And if that empties whenever our pulse happens, that means less healing. But 30% faster means those breaks are few and far between, so we keep that blue bar full. Not only that, but because each crescendo takes 12 notes to fill, if we're playing 30% faster, these crescendos are coming up 30% faster, right? So we're shaving off almost a third of our recharge time on each crescendo, which means more healing. Not just more healing, but if you're playing your damage instruments, more damage. So there's another healing crescendo. We should be getting the gentle healing one here soon. Boom, gentle healing, right? That builds up so much faster. So if you're going to be a heal bard or really any bard, this is another one of those talents where I say absolutely take it at all costs. Last but not least, we have Encore. Encore says it gives a chance, that chance is 15%, for notes to become empowered, greatly increasing the charge of their crescendo when struck. That means each note will count as 2 notes. So earlier on, you might have noticed that some of these notes were glowing, right? So here's what the notes look like normally. You might see that little like weird halo around them. That means that they're affected by upbeat. If I choose Encore, some of these notes are going to start glowing now. We should have one soon. There's a 15% chance that any note will be glowing. There it is. So that's an empowered note. What that means is that that counts as 2 notes for the purpose of a crescendo. Boom. And you see how much faster that can build them up, right? Because that could mean instead of taking 12 notes, in a perfect world, if you have amazing RNG, it could take as few as 6 notes. It could be 8 or 9 notes. But either way, you're going to be building these up much quicker. Now it is RNG based, right? Because you're relying on a percentage, but one, it'll never take longer, right? Your crescendos will never take longer to build. They will only become quicker. And 2, on average, I find that this shaves off about 2 seconds per crescendo. So if you're looking at being a healing bard, if you want to focus entirely on healing, if you take reverberate, chorus, solo, upbeat, and encore, what you've got now is a 30-meter range for all your passive effects. Everybody within range is getting 10% extra healing from all sources, right? So warriors with their provoke, paladins with their healing librum, scoundrels with their heal card, all of that's increased by 10%. All of your healing is increased by 20%, and again, this stacks. Your notes are playing 30% faster, which means 30% quicker crescendos, and with Encore, you're shaving off on average 2 seconds per crescendo for healing. What this all means is that you have plenty of healing to go around. You can absolutely heal any content in the game as a bard. I'm saying that with full confidence right now. Right now, bard is an amazing place as a healer. But let's say you don't need all that healing, right? Let's say that you run 15s all the time. You run hard mode raids. Life is easy. Let's talk about the DPS bard, the buff bard, as I like to put it, kind of the scald archetype. So I already went over why I don't like acoustic power, because reverberate's so much better. Another thing about acoustic power, right, because your heals are smart heals, they target the lowest percentage of health. If you've got a DPS that unbent because they missed a mechanic, and your tank is at like half health and you try to heal your tank, the crescendo will go to the DPS. So I never take acoustic power. All right, so let's say that we don't need all these healing buffs. Let's look on this side, the DPS side. Encouraging note, any ally affected by a pulse effect from your instruments deals 5% more damage. Cool, let's take a look at that, right? So, cure wounds. Does it work? Yes, right? Because it's got that pulse effect of the buff. Gentle healing is a pulse effect. Right, there we go. We're getting that 5% extra damage buff. That's what that orange icon is. It's the 5% buff, right? Protection. Protection doesn't give it. That's interesting. Even though that is a pulse effect, it's not working. Any ally affected by a pulse effect. Okay, so that's something that we should probably let the devs know. What about inspiration? Inspiration seems to be working, right? You see that we get the buff for wisdom and the encouraging note buff, so that's good. That's pretty awesome. Songsword. Now, Songsword is a relatively newer talent. It's one that I just spent like all day yesterday testing. This is incredible. So your smart heals grant a 10% damage boost to nearby enemies. What does nearby enemies mean? The range for Songsword is the same range as all of your passive effects, which means reverberate increases the range. So if you have reverberate, right, your passive effects range is 30 meters, which again, right, if I'm over here, let's take a look at how far our range is at the moment. So if I'm sitting at this dummy over here, the range to that dummy is 32 meters. So from corner to corner, we're looking at about 30 meters range. So from here all the way to that dummy in the corner over there. If I use a crescendo, everybody in that radius will be getting a 10% damage increase. And yes, I tested this. And the way I was testing it was I was sitting right over here. I had next level sitting on that dummy, and I had Sparky sitting on that dummy over there. And I would just keep moving around and using crescendos and seeing who would get affected by them. And it turns out, yep, it's the same range as your passive effects. So if they are getting affected, if your allies are getting affected by any of your passive benefits, when you use a heal crescendo, boop, oh, There we go. That little gem icon right there, that's a 10% damage buff. And guess what? It stacks with Encouraging Note, which is awesome. So instead of just a normal 10% boost, we're now looking at 15% extra damage. That buff lasts for 3 seconds, by the way. So for 3 seconds, they're doing 15% extra damage every time you use one of your heal crescendos. That's pretty awesome. That adds up quite quickly. The next talent, sheet music. Once every 10 seconds, you receive credit for a note that you missed. I hate this. I cannot stand it. I pretend it doesn't exist. Why? One, it rewards you for failure. You missed something, we'll make it up for you. I don't like that. Orbus is a skill-based game. I want to be rewarded for my successes and punished for my failures. If I miss a note, I don't want to get credit for it. If I miss a note, it's because I'm not doing my job right. Not only that, but using song sheet means you're not using upbeat. Look how slow these notes are coming down. Take upbeat. Those notes will come so much faster, right? Again, 30% quicker, which means 30% faster crescendos. And what happens when you have a crescendo and you're using Song Sword? 10% extra damage boost for everybody within range, which should be everybody in the party. That is incredible. So yes, absolutely take upbeat. Last but not least, Symphony. You can activate an additional instrument, but the notes play at the same time as your existing instruments. So let's take a look at, there we go, at Symphony, right? So with Symphony, the most commonly used instruments are going to be Cure Wounds and Gentle Healing, because those are always used. Harm and Justice for the damage. This is where you're going to need that second mallet, because notes will play at the same time. As you just saw there are double notes. Right? So Symphony, I leave it up to you to decide if you want to use Symphony or Encore as a DPS buff bard. And the reason I say that, because you're not going to be getting crescendos up as quick as if you used Encore, right? With Encore, you're going to get your heal crescendos up faster, which means that DPS buff goes faster. But you're not locked into the same 3 instruments, right? With Encore, the instruments that you're going to be using are most likely going to be your 2 heals, because they're always equipped, and either protection or harm, right? Because if you have these 3 instruments, you're going to be able to activate your tiles. The tiles for Bard almost exclusively rely on Cure Wounds and Harm. And of course, or not Cure Wounds, Gentle Healing and Harm. And you're going to have Cure Wounds because that's a big heal crescendo. Right, so if you want your tiles, if you want that extra healing and that extra damage, those are the 3 instruments you need. With Encore, you are locked into this play style. You don't have many other options. With Symphony, I can say, oh, do I want to deal more damage and get more interrupts? Boom, I can do that now, right? Because I have Justice. I can get that bolt, or that burst of 5 interrupts, 5 stuns, 5 damage. Or if I have a ranger in the party, I can deactivate that and go with Inspiration. And yeah, you can change them on the fly like I just did, even in combat. So now I've got Inspiration. Oh, that's not Inspiration. I'm sorry. That was Protection. Now I've got Inspiration running. And now my rangers are building up their ultimate even faster, right? If we're dealing with lower level content and I want to protect my tank or protect my DPS, I can go with Protection, right? And now my allies are getting that shielding effect. So there's a whole bunch of more options. Symphony really unlocks Bard for different kinds of play styles if you want to do that. So really, that choice I kind of leave up to you. My right hand just lost tracking. That was weird. So that last one, yeah, I leave that up to you. Either one of them could be useful. So we went over the talents, we went over the instruments, we went over how the Bard works. Let's take a look at the equipment now, right? On all of my armor, I have projectile damage and crit chance. Why do I have projectile damage, crit chance? Well, one, your crescendos are projectiles, which means anytime you use a heal projectile, your crescendo, that's affected. So I've got another 4% extra healing on my crescendos because of my armor. And then crit chance, because if you crit, that's 50% extra healing. That's a lot of healing. So yeah, that's what I use. For my mallets, I use Unbending. I didn't really care what the other one was as long as I have Unbending, because as a healer, if I die, the party dies. I don't want the party to die, and I don't want to die, so I'm going to use Unbending. Always a good thing to have. The rings, I didn't really pay much attention to the rings. I use the crit rings because, again, critting is always nice. I've got Elite Hunter and Empowered just because those are the two basic rings that I use on everything. That's not really terribly important. Tiles, I'll hover over these so you can see what tiles I use. These tiles were made for me by Blue Ducky, and I trust Blue Ducky tremendously with tiles. I don't know what they mean because I'm not great at artificing, but I trust Ducky. So those are the tiles. Regarding rotation, right? How do you heal? I heal a little bit differently depending on if I have a paladin or a warrior. If I have a paladin, typically sorry, I thought I saw the hexagons moving for a second. That was throwing me off. For a paladin, what I like to do is, again, I'm running my 2 heal instruments all the time. When they get to about half health, I'm going to use gentle healing on them, right? That'll put them back up to full health. They keep taking damage. My pulse effects are healing them. When they get below half health, they are going to use their empowered heal book. And this is just a typical rotation, not for bosses that require specific rotation like Mistkeeper. But in a typical rotation, I'm going to let them then use their heal. After they use their heal, once they get under half health, I usually try to time it to where they have like 1 or 2 seconds left before they die. I hit them with a Cure Wounds, because that Cure Wounds will take them all the way back up to full health. And then we just repeat the cycle, right? So they're sitting there, they get under half health. I use that. They shield whenever they feel like they're necessary. They'll use their heal book, right? They're taking more damage. They get to where they have 1 or 2 seconds left before they die. Boom, Cure Wounds. They're back up to full. So on and so forth. With a warrior, you're pretty much going to do the same thing, but it's going to be whenever their shield is down. As long as their shield is up, they're usually not taking any damage. Whenever their shield goes down, that's when things get hectic. They're going to be spamming Provoke. You're going to be using your heal pulses, so that should keep them in the green. If they start to drop, again, right? Gentle healing if they get below half health. And then if they get to where they're about to die, you know, they've got 1 second left, 1 hit or 2 hits remaining. Cure Wounds will bring them back up to full. And I always recommend that my tanks bring Blessing of Protection, because Blessing of Might is cool, raises DPS, but a dead party does no DPS, so Blessing of Protection, in my opinion, is better. Now, last but not least, let's talk about the Bard Ultimate, the yellow bar here. Once you hit 13 crescendos, assuming you don't have any wisdom buffs whatsoever, the more you stack wisdom, the fewer crescendos it takes. Every time you use a crescendo, it fills up that bar. Like I said, 13 normally. When it's full, if you pull both triggers, it'll activate your ultimate. What your ultimate does is everybody within range, again, 25 meters, will get 20% extra damage and healing. Right? Now, if you're going to use your ultimate, I recommend putting on Instrument of Inspiration. There we go. Why do I recommend that? Because the Instrument of Inspiration, like I said before, the crescendo will extend the length of all ongoing ultimate abilities. So I'm going to build this up, and then I'm going to remove my other 2 abilities, or my other 2 instruments. Let's just go ahead and use these, get rid of them. There we go. So I'm trying to, we'll keep that one on. I'm trying to remove as many buff effects as possible on here so I can show you just what I want to show you. The Orange Fist is going to stay. Here we go. So we can stack a whole bunch of stuff as a bard with the ultimate. And this is where things get absolutely ridiculous. If you want to stack ultimate DPS, you want to be the ultimate like party buffer, get a heal crescendo ready, right? We're using our DPS talents, right? Reverberate, Encouraging Note, Song Sword, Upbeat Symphony, or Encore. Really what's important for this is that you have Encouraging Note and Song Sword. So here we go. We're going to use our ultimate, right? Now I'm going to use, you see we have another fist icon. That's the damage and healing boost. Inspiration, just refreshed it. Gentle Healing, we just got that icon. So we had the gem, we had encouraging note, and the Bard ultimate. I have tested this. Yes, they do stack. Yes, that's 35% additional damage. 35% for everybody in the party. If you add that with a mage that puts 2 affliction stacks for 10% weakness, if you have a scoundrel with break shot for 5%, a flint card for 5%, a ranger with hunter's mark for 5%, a warrior that uses blessing of might, you can stack so much damage. That is absolutely ridiculous. So when you use the Bard Ultimate, by the way, you're going to get this little debuff right here. That debuff will last for 2.5 minutes. You cannot be affected by another Bard Ultimate in that time. So you can build it up as much as you want, right? You can build up the Ultimate and you can use it as much as you want, but it's not going to affect you. So everybody that gets affected by a Bard Ultimate will have that timer. You cannot decurse it. You cannot Instrument of Protection cleanse it. You cannot log out, log in to remove it. You can't crash, desync, or anything. There's no way to remove that debuff. Just deal with it. So as you see, I can still build up my crescendo, but that debuff is going to remain for what should be 2.5 minutes. I feel like it hasn't been that long, but it very well could be. And then you can use it again. So I believe that is it for the Bard. I try to go over everything. I will also be releasing a PDF going over all my findings on Bard. That way it's nice and consolidated and you can read it nice and quick. Oh, potions, potions, potions. Things that'll help you. Intellect potions. As I mentioned before, an age-enhanced intel potion will increase magical damage by 8%. Healing is magical damage. That's awesome. Take your your intel potions. Crit potions. Like I said, crits means 50% extra healing. Take your crit potion. Strength will only affect your mallet throw. By the way, that acts as an interrupt. It'll also get you in combat. So yeah, have fun with that. So don't bother with strength. Vitality, the longer you stay alive, the better. So as far as I'm concerned, that's good. Supercharger, not really necessary because you can build up your super so fast. But if you want to be a super stacking bard, go for it. I'm not going to take that away from you. You've probably seen how I like to stack wisdom on ranger for ultimate effects. So if you want to do that for bard, be my guest. But I believe that's everything. I hope that helps, and I hope that by explaining it all to you in this way, you understand now that Bard is a wonderful class. It is a great class. It is a very potent and powerful class once you understand it. Definitely give it a try in dungeon queues if you can. It might take some getting used to, but once you get the hang of it, I promise it is a class unlike any other, and you'll probably enjoy it. And it's just, it's so much more powerful than people give it credit for. So, thank you to everybody who made this possible. Thank you to everybody who recommended that I make another video on Bard. It's been a ton of fun testing out all the new stuff, and thank you so much to the devs for finally buffing this class and putting it where it needs to be. I know this is a long video, but it needed everything in there. So thank you all, best of luck, and happy hunting.